The 1970s, a decade that promised so much for British motoring, yet delivered heartbreak on four wheels. Britain's car industry stood at a crossroads, battling strikes, economic collapse, and foreign competition that was getting sharper by the year. Manufacturers kept making promises, glossy brochures, bold headlines, excited buyers. But behind those showroom smiles lurked a very different reality. Some of these cars looked the part, some genuinely had potential, and that's exactly what made them so painful. Today on Britain Rewind, we're counting down 10 British cars from the 1970s that truly let people down. But which one still stings the most? Let's find out. Number 10. Triumph Stag. Kicking off our countdown is the Triumph Stag, a car that looked like a dream and drove like a nightmare. When it launched in 1970, Britain couldn't believe its luck. A sleek, sophisticated four-seat convertible with genuine grand touring ambitions. The styling was absolutely stunning: long bonnet, elegant lines, that iconic T-bar rollover hoop. Triumph promised something genuinely special. An early press reaction was electric. But then owners actually started driving them. The Stag's 3.0-litre V8, developed entirely in-house, proved catastrophically unreliable. Overheating became a daily ritual. Timing chains stretched. Head gaskets failed. Coolant systems were borderline experimental. Dealers were overwhelmed with warranty claims almost immediately. The cruelest irony? Triumph had a perfectly reliable Rover V8 available at the time, and chose not to use it. The Stag became a symbol of British potential squandered through poor engineering decisions. A gorgeous car destroyed by its own engine. And trust us, the disappointments only get worse from here. Number 9. Vauxhall Viva HC. Vauxhall Viva HC is a car that quietly failed millions of ordinary British families who simply wanted something dependable. The Viva HC arrived in 1970 as a sensible, affordable family runabout. Vauxhall marketed it as modern, practical, and value for money, exactly what post-war Britain was searching for. Initial sales were encouraging, and the Viva found its way onto countless driveways across the country. But reliability became a growing concern almost immediately. Rust arrived with frightening speed, bodywork that seemed almost determined to dissolve. Mechanical faults accumulated. Build quality felt inconsistent in ways that left owners frustrated and out of pocket. For a car aimed at working families who couldn't afford constant repair bills, this was a genuine betrayal of trust. The Viva HC wasn't spectacular enough to be forgiven its flaws. It was just ordinary, and ordinarily unreliable. Could something far more prestigious also make this list? If Vauxhall Viva HC surprised you, keep watching, because the surprises are only just beginning. Number 8. Morris Marina. At number 8, we have the Morris Marina, and if that name just made you wince, you're not alone. British Leyland launched the Marina in 1971 with enormous commercial ambition. This was supposed to be the sensible, modern family saloon that would finally fight back against Ford's dominance. Millions were spent on marketing. Showrooms buzzed with anticipation. And initially, sales were genuinely strong. The Marina shifted in impressive numbers. But beneath the conventional styling lurked deeply old-fashioned engineering. The suspension design dated back to the 1940s. Handling could be genuinely alarming in certain conditions. Build quality was wildly inconsistent depending on which day of the week it rolled off the line, and British Leyland workers weren't always in the mood to care. Critics were unimpressed. Owners became increasingly frustrated. The Marina sold well simply because buyers had limited alternatives, not because it was good. One of the most damning verdicts in British automotive history. And we're nowhere near number 1 yet. Number 7. Hillman Avenger. Number 7 belongs to the Hillman Avenger, a car that promised a fresh start for the Roots Group but ultimately couldn't escape its own limitations. Launched in 1970, the Avenger looked clean, modern, and genuinely competitive. Chrysler, who now controlled Roots, invested seriously in development, hoping to carve out a real market share against Ford and Vauxhall. The styling had a certain transatlantic crispness to it, and the press launch generated cautious optimism. However, real-world ownership told a very different story. Rust consumed bodywork at an alarming rate. Mechanical reliability proved inconsistent. Interior quality felt cheap in ways that buyers noticed immediately. The Avenger was never truly terrible, but in a decade when Japanese manufacturers were raising standards relentlessly, merely being average was simply not enough. Chrysler's British ambition slowly faded alongside the Avenger's reputation. A car that had genuine potential but never fulfilled it. Sound familiar? Because we're about to meet several more just like it. Number 6. Austin Allegro. Halfway through our countdown, and the disappointments are getting heavier. Austin Allegro is arguably one of the most ridiculed British cars ever built. British Leyland unveiled the Allegro in 1973 as the modern replacement for the legendary Mini 1100. Expectations were reasonable. Surely British Leyland had learned from past mistakes? The answer was a resounding no. The Allegro arrived with controversial styling, rounded, stubby, universally mocked. That infamous quartic steering wheel made headlines for entirely the wrong reasons. Handling was poor. Build quality was almost comically inconsistent. Rear windows reportedly popped out under certain conditions. Stories of brand-new Allegros requiring immediate dealer attention became common currency in every pub and workplace in Britain. The car became national shorthand for industrial decline. Sales collapsed far faster than British Leyland had anticipated. Decades later, the Allegro still triggers groans from anyone old enough to remember it. But believe it or not, there are still 5 more painful entries above this one. Number 5. Jaguar XJS. We're deep into the top 5 now. The Jaguar XJS is a car that should have been magnificent, but arrived carrying wounds it never fully recovered from. Jaguar unveiled the XJS in 1975 as the spiritual successor to the legendary E-Type. That was always going to be an impossible standard. But the XJS made things considerably worse for itself. The styling divided opinion sharply. Those flying buttresses were genuinely controversial. Early cars suffered from serious fuel consumption issues at a time when the oil crisis had made economy a national obsession. Build quality was inconsistent, as it so often was with British Leyland-controlled Jaguar during this period. The car felt unfinished. Mechanically fragile. Expensive to maintain. For buyers expecting E-Type magic in a new suit, the XJS was a cold shower. An icon that took years of development to become the car it always should have been. The real pain, though, is still ahead. Number 4. Rover SD1. Rover SD1 is a car that arrived to genuine fanfare and then systematically broke its owners' hearts. The SD1 launched in 1976 and immediately won Car of the Year. Stunning hatchback styling clearly inspired by Ferrari. A magnificent 3.5-litre Rover V8. Premium positioning. Genuine ambition. Britain was genuinely excited. And then reality arrived. Build quality was catastrophic, and that word is used carefully. Electrical systems failed. Panels didn't align. Paint peeled. Mechanical gremlins appeared with almost comic frequency. Fleet buyers, who had committed significant money, were furious. Journalists who had praised the car on launch were quietly rewriting their verdicts within 18 months. The SD1 had every ingredient to be truly world-class. The execution was so poor it became a tragedy rather than a triumph. A car that should have saved British Leyland, but instead accelerated its decline. And somehow, we still have 3 worse entries remaining. Number 3. British Leyland Princess. We're in the top 3, and the weight of these disappointments is extraordinary. British Leyland Princess is a car so confused about its own identity that it never stood a chance. Launched in 1975, the Princess, later rebadged simply as the 18 to 22 series, arrived with genuinely interesting Heidriger suspension and striking wedge styling penned by Harris Mann. On paper, it was modern, ambitious, different. In reality, it was deeply flawed. The wedge styling divided buyers immediately. The lack of a hatchback tailgate, baffling for a car of this size and shape, infuriated practical-minded British families. Build quality varied enormously. Reliability issues accumulated quickly. The Princess never really knew whether it was a luxury car or a family car, and buyers noticed that uncertainty immediately. British Leyland poured resources into a car that the public never fully embraced. A missed opportunity wrapped in genuinely interesting ideas. But even this level of disappointment pales against what's coming next. Number 2. Triumph TR7. We're almost there, and this one genuinely hurts. The Triumph TR7, a car that was supposed to resurrect British sports car glory on the world stage, particularly in America. When the TR7 launched in 1975, Triumph had enormous hopes. The wedge styling was bold, modern, deliberately provocative. Marketing declared it the shape of things to come. American buyers were the primary target, a huge, lucrative market that Triumph desperately needed. But the reality was painful almost immediately. Build quality from the Speak factory in Liverpool was dreadful. Industrial action repeatedly disrupted production. Early cars arrived riddled with faults. The fixed-roof coupe format frustrated traditional sports car buyers who wanted open-air freedom. The engine felt underpowered against increasingly capable competition. When the convertible version finally arrived, it was almost too late to rescue the TR7's reputation. A sports car that embarrassed the badge it wore. Triumph never truly recovered. And now, the car that tops our list. The one that still genuinely stings. Number 1. British Leyland Maxi. British Leyland Maxi is undoubtedly the biggest disappointment in 1970s British motoring. The British Leyland Maxi is a car that could have changed everything, and instead changed nothing. Launched in 1969 and deeply embedded throughout the early 1970s, the Maxi arrived with genuinely revolutionary credentials. 5 doors. 5 seats. A proper hatchback layout before most rivals understood the concept. An innovative 5-speed gearbox. This was Isagonis thinking boldly again, the man behind the Mini, reaching for something transformative. But British Leyland's execution was catastrophic. That 5-speed gearbox was almost undrivable at launch, the linkage so vague and notchy that journalists genuinely struggled during press events. Build quality was poor. Marketing was confused. The interior felt unloved. Buyers stayed away in their thousands. The Maxi could have pioneered the modern family hatchback, genuinely ahead of its time. Instead it handed that future to the Volkswagen Golf. Britain watched a winning idea collapse in real time. That still hurts. Deeply. The 1970s was a decade that tested Britain's automotive industry to its absolute limits, and sometimes, those limits snapped. Strikes, economic chaos, poor management, and missed opportunities combined to produce cars that left owners frustrated and a nation quietly losing faith. Yet somehow, we still remember these cars. Not simply because they failed, but because they almost succeeded. And that's the most British thing of all. Which car disappointed you the most? Drop your answer in the comments below, we'd love to hear your stories. If you enjoyed this countdown, please like the video and subscribe. This is Britain Rewind, keeping British automotive history alive.